what's going on? This is Steve,
Hi, and I'm Liz.
and this is
Marriage
Marriage
for Grown
for
Folks.
Grown Folks. We're obviously coming to you guys in a very different setting. Both of us are sitting in our cars, and with heavy hearts, obviously, but grateful to be here as well. And for those of you who are new to our podcast, we're here to be a space for the people who subscribe to the establishment of marriage. We love what we do. We love being married. I love my wife. I hope she loves me. Um, but we want to have a good space where we can have some good conversation and, about things that are happening in the world amongst, some popular things, unpopular things, probably some challenging subjects and topics. But nonetheless, that's what we're here for. So we're glad you guys took time to join us in our vehicles. And if you're asking why we're in our vehicles, it was important for us to have this, I guess you would call emergency episode. We don't have our, obviously, we don't have our set. We don't have lights and makeup and all of that good stuff. I don't wear makeup, but, we just wanted to make sure we knock this out and get something up for all of you who are wondering what it looks like to be on the ground during this very emotional time out here with the wildfires. Um, so, we don't want to take up too much of your time. This won't be a super long pod, but it's very important that we report as a married couple on the ground floor in LA, how we feel, what's going on, and all of that good stuff. Right.
Yes, definitely.
So we always start with, we're very aware of what's happening, out in the world with all of these, with Trump acting a donkey, making Mark Zuckerberg bow down, so to speak. We recognize, some of the goofy things that are happening in sports, Skip Bayless and FS1 team under scrutiny. Um, you got a couple of
And
different things.
Joy,
What's up?
I said what with what's her name? Joy, such as Roberts or Joy, what's her name again?
Tell me about it. Oh, with FS1. Yeah. Yeah, she's with the
Oh,
FS1 crew.
crew.
Yeah, she's a
Okay,
part of that.
got it. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Yeah. But you know what, before we get into it really quickly, what are you listening to? I know you've been a little somber, but what are you listening to?
I listened to El today on is it Ode to War, where he's got all the miners and all. So I listened to that on repeat before I had um my first workout,
Yeah.
and that was after my meditation. So I have a meditation um soundtrack, and it's just
Yeah.
kind of peaceful music, no words. It's not classical, but um it just helps me to just level out. And so I listened to that, and then I heard El afterwards. Something in the song reminded me of Elmin. We love him. And so I listened to that. I listened to his LP, and then I went straight to Ode to War and put that on repeat. So it actually helped me
Yeah.
feel, yeah, helped me to calm. So, I mean, I'm sure the meditation helped some too, but um,
I'm glad you took the time to do that. I'm glad I gotta applaud you, first of all, for even recognizing that you were kind of, falling into this deep dive of it. I was telling the kids as well today at practice, like watching something like this over and over on loop, psychologically, it can wear on you, could do some negative things. You can fall
mhm.
deep into it, almost into a depressive catatonic like state if you if you allow it to overtake you. So I
it's
applaud you for
it's a
that.
balance. You wanting to like you want to be informed
Mm.
because it was moving, and we're not necessarily concerned about where we are, but just thinking about our community, right? Of our school community, but also just considering those surrounding areas. And so it's nice to know what's going on, also to have an idea of what's happening in Altadena. And, we have communities, or we're connected to communities out there as well. And so wanting to be informed, but also recognizing the self-preservation and how that loop is not um, very beneficial. You can only take so much information before it goes into overload, especially when the information is just so daunting. So,
Just once
yeah,
again, respect to you for recognizing where you were and having the tools and wherewithal to utilize what you had to do to get yourself back to homeostasis, back to normal. For me,
appreciate it.
I've been stuck
Hmm.
on um Kanye West's, I believe it was Life of Pablo album, but it was a track on there called Frank's Track. It's very short. It's like 35, 40 seconds. It's
Oh,
Frank Ocean singing, and it's
oh,
very somber and endearing. You know what I mean? Very
mhm,
somber, endearing, as I said before, but it seemed to be appropriate. You know what I mean? But once again, even a song like that, you don't want to get too stuck, in that feeling. Next thing you know, you're into, Electronica and Hove, Apadita, and you don't want to do that. That
mhm,
almost feels like somebody passed. So, for those of you who aren't aware, living under a rock, aren't really alert or understanding what's happening. We live in Los Angeles, and right now we're under a bunch of wildfires have overtaken a lot of the outskirts of the city. Starting a couple evenings ago, specifically in Palisades. Oh, this is cool. Like this is in real time. I'm getting text messages are still coming through. Um, Mike's gym survived. Thank you, Lord. So yeah, my guy got a gym in Palisades and it's good to go. Oh,
oh,
woo, woo. Sorry, guys, but in real time, all of
no,
these things are happening.
that's
And,
worth it. That was worth a pause.
yeah, that's good. So
Hmm.
it started off with Palisades to begin with, and it almost feels like the entire city, which is not very big to begin with,
Hmm.
got leveled, and thousands of acres burned, hundreds of people, thousands of people out of their, have lost their homes, and then I believe it spread it out to Altadena and Eaton and different places. And then all of a sudden last night it was going up
Hollywood
to
Hills.
Runyon Canyon and Studio City and, you know, getting, closer to us. But nonetheless, that's what's going on out here in LA. And we wanted to make sure we took some time to pause just to give you guys where we are in the moment, in the moment.
Hmm.
So,
I have nothing. Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I'm sorry.
yeah. So this, just want to lay the groundwork down for the people who don't know, even though we should all know what's going on. But we thought it was important to take a moment and to shed some light and to just man, just kind of like throw it all out there. Yeah, woosah.
Hmm.
But nonetheless, for me, I think not just how I feel, I wanted to kind of go in reverse. And I know last night when we were chatting, my brother who was evacuated last night from that West Hollywood area while it was going up towards Mulholland and all of that, he came in. I think during the conversation we were talking about just I kind of felt like I didn't feel wrong for not being too emotional. And I know you were emotional yesterday. We tried to, go do some things to occupy our mind, but you were emotional, which felt right. And I'm like, well, I don't feel wrong because I'm not in tears. But I think he said something and I was like, you know what? This feels familiar. And I felt like I was watching myself look at myself and the situation overall that was happening. And I was like, oh my goodness, this feels familiar. This feels like when COVID happened and my body is
Oh, yeah, yeah.
the same way it did when COVID was happening because it's still not too far in our rear view mirror. So I can
The
still
trauma is still
recall.
there.
Yeah, I can still recall
Hmm.
how I felt and
Hmm.
all of those things. So I wanted to go in reverse and realize kind of you know articulate that. I'm like, am I supposed to be crying? I feel awful inside, right? But how do I, what's going on? Like, oh, this feels like COVID again, where you're
It's that
like
exactly. That's what I was gonna say. Exactly. It's
uncertain.
the unknown.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
What was your initial reaction before you kind of like broke down?
Which time?
Right, right,
Which
right.
time? Um, okay, so take it back a couple days before yesterday, we got an alert. You know, we have the ring on our door, right? And so because of it, it gives us certain alerts that we don't always get from just like regular news media. And so I had gotten an alert and it said something about a wind advisory. And then I got another alert that said something about fires. And that was on Sunday. And in all fairness, I disregarded it. I didn't, I was just like, okay, this is not going to impact us because fire and wind happen out here. That is it's just something that happens here. It just doesn't typically get so close to where we are right now. And so I say that to say, fast forward then. So that happened Sunday. Monday, I said something to you and was just like, hey, like, is it normal that the Palisades is being impacted the way that it is? And you would then mention, remember, something along the lines of like, these fires happen all the time. They typically happen kind of right, closer
Deeper in
to
the
like
valley.
Mulholland, yes,
Yeah.
deeper in the
Santa Barbara.
valley,
Yeah, deeper in the valley.
right. So it's a little weird that it's in the Palisades, but this is still kind of normal. And then our daughter was like, "Hey mom, we got some alerts at school." Monday she got an alert and I'm like, "Shy, we're in Inglewood, girl. Like you don't need to be so like pressed about that, what have you." So still trying to like brush it off, not really seeing it for what it is. And then next day, Tuesday, mom, some of my friends had to leave at noon because they needed to evacuate. And that's when it was like, click, this is real.
I didn't
It
even
was
I didn't
never, it,
story from you. I didn't even realize that she had brought this home. Wow. So she had been
yes.
alerted. Had been alerted.
She knew, yeah, she knew some things on Monday. Remember, they were just really tired, first day back from break. Like the kids were tired. I think we all were just kind of like walking zombies on Monday. But then Tuesday, she had, we text during the day. And so she had said something along the lines of like, a friend had to leave. They were kind of joking about it, but you could tell that they weren't really joking. And then they left in the middle of class. They got a call from their mom and they had to leave. And so that's when she was like, okay, I think this could be like serious.
Right.
And then I picked them up like, we usually do. We kind of went through the things and then she started to tell me about it again that evening.
Mm.
And by that point, yeah, yep, we started hearing things on the news. The fires were picking up, the winds had picked up. We were going to expect like some serious wind.
Yeah, yeah. Santa Ana winds, for those of you who aren't, privy to how it works in LA. The winds
Mhm.
generally come at certain times, just the same way that Florida has its seasons, or the East Coast has its hurricane seasons or tropical storm seasons.
Right,
The middle of the country has their like tornado seasons and stuff like that. We have these seasons where these wildfires and brush fires can take place because, it's super dry out here. And all you need
right.
is good solid winds, no moisture, and next thing you know, one piece of fire turns into a big monster. And this is without a doubt one of the biggest things that I've been a part of historically.
Right.
Living in a state, and it feels different. It feels really different because we're connected, and just man, we can't even. I wish I could show you. Matter of fact, maybe in when we do the editing process, we can get some photos up of what it's been looking like. I know Mark has some really good photos, even though the imagery has been being tossed at us at an alarming rate. What I mean, maybe we can throw a couple of those in there, but
Mhm.
it's just very very it feel you don't know when you're in the middle of history, right? You don't know because you're living in it. And generally speaking, you're talking about just you look on TV or you look on social media, and what you're looking at is another part of the country or even another part of the world, right?
California. Oh, hmm.
Yeah, and as a human, you feel it, but it doesn't overtake you. You know what I mean? It's not. It doesn't ring your doorbell, if that makes sense. But this one feels like it's ringing our doorbell. As we're super connected. to that way, with the team that I coach in Santa Monica, our daughter being a student out that way and having friends who have lost their homes. So just for some background, I do coach basketball, and it's a lot of my students, the school that I work or coach at, they feed specifically from that Palisades area and that Malibu area, West LA to be specific, and other places as well. But specifically Palisades, we've got a number of families who make that trek, to the school. And I think the number now, Lizzie, is like at 30. You know what I mean? And if you got a student body of 200, a little over 200
It's
and 30
it's
families,
40 families.
yeah, who have
It's 40
complete
families.
up to 40,
It's up to
who
40.
have law. That's almost an entire city gone
So it's 40 families well, let me backtrack. So it's 40 families that lost, or excuse me, that have either had to evacuate or completely lost their homes. They put the numbers together. I don't know how many have actually lost their homes, but right now with that latest email, it was 40 families that have been directly impacted one way or another and are not in their homes right now
and growing.
and growing, yes, and growing.
Growing. Unbelievable.
Mhm.
To give to shed some more light on this, you and I didn't get a chance to talk, but you asked, and I was like, nah, man, save it for the pod. Let's go ahead and
Right, right, right.
dump it.
Hmm.
But without being theatrical or dramatic, just like I said before, you're in the moment, you realize what's happening, you know it's history, but you're still the watcher, so to speak, where you can see it happening, so you can see how you're reacting as well. And as I go in, I had to consider how I was going to address the team. Do you give this big, long soliloquy
Hmm.
and this big speech, trying to keep everything in perspective and, wax poetic about, having perspective and all of that? I was like, nah, I
Hmm.
think these kids need a place to be. They need a sense of normalcy, a haven, if you will, an outlet, somewhere to be, and let's get after it. Let's get after
Right.
it. Don't change who you are. Hold them accountable. Get them to work hard. Be high energy. And as I did that, I went out to my car, and Juju was out there. Juju and his sister, right? So I go out there, and I just wanted to make sure I hugged them. And as I hugged him, I'm breaking down. You know what I'm saying? He's breaking down. But I'll never forget. I'll never ever forget it. I'll never forget it. Both of their hair smell like smoke. And although that's something simple, Lizzie, it's like what's going on. You know that they just lost their home. They're young, they're in school, and I'm like, this is real. These kids obviously have been in the rummage, in the home. And I just can't even imagine my son and my daughter. But as I held him, Lizzie, as I just held him, I could smell the stench of that smoke. And once I pulled him back, and he was just like, "Man, coach, thank you." And I squeezed him, and then I ran back in the gym and restarted practice, and it hit me even harder. Like, man, like these kids are going through it. They're going through it. Like, how fair is this? We're looking at a couple of 4 years ago, they had everything interrupted for COVID. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Dances, proms, all of this stuff that kids, have with school when they look forward to, and it becomes a part of something that's a strong memory, core memories for them. And then here we are 4 or 5 years later, 5 years now, and it's like here it's happening again, but we're living right in it. So it made me even more alert to the moment and the kids who were there. The At practice, they don't have to show up. Some of them are in hotels, they're in friends' houses. Shoot, one of
How
my
many
kids
showed up?
that lost their homes. What
Right.
question you asked? Lost their homes or the whole
The ones
period?
that lost their homes, who showed up
We
of the
probably
families?
at about 17, 18 that were there total, which is a big number for the moment. You know what I mean? So kids were showing up. They showed up. But that lost their homes, it was probably one, two, three or four. Of course, one who's displaced, but they were able to save their home. But you can just see it. Their eyes, you can just, if you look at them, if I looked at them, their eyes were just all over the place. And what I did as well during practice, I like to start on time. I'm a stickler for that. But I didn't start on time. Once they got in, it was somber, heavy. The air smelled different, obviously, even though we're indoors. But the energy in the environment, it was just heavy. The way people were speaking, they were, trying their best not to smile too hard, almost like this unwritten rule of how you're supposed to conduct yourself at a funeral or somewhere that requires a notion of somberness, right? And I refused to buy in. I know it's not, but I was doing it on purpose. I was hugging, I was upbeat, I was showing my teeth, I was bumping guys, trying to get them to smile. And then finally, I just said, you know what? Don't start practice. Let them start practice. Let them start it. We'll start when they start. I got my captains here. They know when it's time to go. And a couple minutes past the time we were supposed to past noon, around 12:03, you can start to hear the talking pick up and the jokes and the bumping and the giggles and the laughs and the snickers and the clowning each other. And I was like, they need this. They need this. You know what I mean? And then we got after it after that. But it was just really good to be around them and to have them out and getting after it, because I really believe, for that 2 hours, we provided a haven where their minds didn't go there. There's kids who are saying, hey, I got to go shopping tonight. My parents are taking me shopping. I don't have clothes. Matter of fact, we have to wear a different color uniform because we have kids who don't have uniforms anymore. So we're
Right.
opting for a color. So I'm just like, this is us, living it indirectly. But imagine what it's like for these kids. So I was grateful. And in the moment, I kept saying, just thank you, Lord, that I can gain a paycheck to show up in a moment like this and to lead and to smile and to
Be a
joke. And
light.
yeah, but they were a light to me as well. It was definitely an energy that was reciprocated, and it made me feel a lot better, to see those. Because what do we know, Lizzie? Tomorrow, something can happen tonight, and tomorrow could be canceled. But I made sure I said that. I was like, man, this is basketball. This ain't nothing. This is minute in the grand scheme of what's happening. But to be able to show up and just
Mhm,
hoop, I was like, man,
mhm.
would you rather be at home watching your city burn on loop on your phone than on the TV on your phone? Or would you rather be in here listening to Coach Hodge screaming holla at you? Right. You know?
Mm,
So
I
that was
don't know.
right, right. But I thought we had a good time. I wanted to make sure I gave you that too before, so you can feel what that was like. I did get some footage as well that I'm gonna chop up for social media, just to see it. But it was really good, man. It was really good to see those kids, because you can say what you can do. I would do this in this situation. You don't know. We don't know because you're not in it.
Mm,
But at the same time, I was telling them, like, you got to snap out of it. You got to be here, be present. It's better if you be present, because when you leave out of here, you're going back to that.
mhm.
You're going back to that. Be
How
grateful to
many
be.
families were on campus?
No families
The
on campus.
campus was closed. I was okay. So right for practice, but I'm saying you said that player or an old player was there with
Hmm.
his sister, and so I'm curious. So what was happening on campus? Because I know that it's an evacuee site, right?
Well, nobody, but no one's there. Yeah, it's no one there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Staff, staff handling business, prepping, thinking, putting things in order. Just the administrators and stuff of that magnitude. They were there, but that
Well,
was it.
we're getting all the emails like from the teachers, and the teachers are really trying to be mindful and of how they speak, wanting to give grace, but also like, hey, we need to push forward, and so wanting to find that nice balance. And so the emails that are coming in to the parents specifically seem to have a good seasoning of both. Like,
Yeah.
hey, let's get back to school. We're looking forward to seeing you. Here's what's happening. Here's what's not happening. Here's the expectation. Please reach out if you need an accommodation. And so it's nice to see because like our daughter is not impacted directly, but she is connected, right? And I don't think she can do another day at home.
Right. Right.
I think
I think
she needs
that,
she needs to be back with her peers because and I mean I don't know how anybody will take what I'm saying, but I'm just like she's adjacent to and she's having a hard time. She's
yeah.
having a really hard time. And she's making connections to places, she's making connections to um people that obviously she respects and has
Right.
like, personal relationships with. And so um I I can't imagine they're going back to school tomorrow, a whole weekend. Yeah, I don't I'm glad that I guess I'm saying like I'm just really happy that they're headed back to school. But I also am really appreciative that there's no pressure to not show up. I mean, to show up
Right.
and from academically and emotionally. Like,
Yeah.
they've got a bunch of people on staff and, they're doing it feels like they're doing all of the right things. But again, we're not directly impacted. So somebody else
Right.
might say, no, actually, this feels really tone deaf because of X, Y, or Z, and
Mm-hmm. It's not,
something
I
that
mean,
we maybe not need to speak to.
science. It's an imperfect science. It's definitely an imperfect science. You know what I mean? And I'm not an administrator, but as a coach, I had to get, some correspondence out myself. And before I
Right.
did that, in this situation, I'm not a business owner. In this situation, I'm a part of staff and I have a superior. But having that conversation with my superior in the moment sucked. All of us recognize that none of us wanted to be the one to put pen to pad, so to speak, even though it's email, put pen to
Yep.
pad, reach out to these families. You know what I mean? And then also you have to think about the other part is who wants to be the one that keeps saying uh thoughts and prayers. So it just gets redundant, and you're just like, man, I don't even want to do this. But
Hmm.
as leaders are supposed to, you have to show up. You have to communicate, and you're never going to hit it directly in the middle. But to get one response on the email, one response, and it was a mom saying, "Thank you for providing a shelter for these kids and an outlet. This is really good." That was
Hmm.
cool
Hmm.
to me. That
Yeah.
was cool. That was extremely cool. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. I hear you. And let's get to it. But because coaches, we're built different. Athletes, coaches, we're built different. We just keep trudging because
Yeah.
that's what we
Right.
teach. It's what you teach to fight through things and so and such. So that was cool. I thought that was really, really cool. But I also think that, last night, remember we had it on the slate to address our family, address our kids and family about a couple things that were happening regarding the fire, to create a space for our family, as well as some other things that we've got going on. And just in the heat of just boom, just like that, it changed. Having my brother show up as an
Right.
evacuee, right? Just like that. So we weren't able to
Yeah.
do that piece. So,
No.
hopefully, we can get to that tonight, and just allow it to be a space where we can kind of, congregate, speak our piece, allow our children to, speak if they need to, even who cares developmentally where they are, just to hear them, so
Well, let
they,
me tell you a little bit about what one of our children said.
mm,
You interested?
yes.
Yeah. So he says, I don't have to go to school today, and I said no because the air quality is really bad. Your principal has made it optional for you. He's at a private school, so he said yes, and he did his little like happy dance. And I was like, really? You're like that excited to not be at school? And he said, well, and he went from happy, like physically jumping to, I really didn't feel safe. I said,
Mm,
really? You didn't feel safe? Why didn't you feel safe? I didn't know if the fire was going to make it to us. And
mm,
And so I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I'm sorry. And then of course then he wanted a hug and he wanted, like so I I believe it was a genuine fear for him. And I was blindsided because I thought yesterday, remember I made that comment? Like he's totally unaware. And
When when is our son ever completely
I
unaware?
know, I know, I know, but it was really interesting.
Here he sees everything.
But he said nothing yesterday, nothing at all about it. And
Well, he's
then apparently he had said something to his sister. And then, like I said, he said something this morning. And so I think it's really interesting, how I'm going to speak for me, right? Like as adults are wanting to protect and shelter and do all of these things and think sometimes not speaking about the thing is protection when in fact, no. He slept well. He didn't get up at all, so we didn't have any issues with that. But in the morning, as he's really excited to not be at school, and he likes school, so I want to put that out there as well, right? But there was a sense of nervousness or unease that he was even experiencing, and I was the one that was unaware. I thought he was, but no, in fact, it was me, not really understanding.
he mentioned a few things to me, but he didn't inquire.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Once
Uh,
again, I think last night I had planned, as I said, to address the family about, not just this, but a couple other things that we were handling,
right,
a
right.
family. And like I said, in real time, things changed just like that. So we didn't really
Hmm.
get, but my folks called, and we're praying together. So all of those things happened, and I'm like, oh, maybe this is not the right time. You know what I mean? But tonight I won't let the sun. I won't let this. The sun's already going down as we speak. But I won't
Right.
let us, rest our heads until we address it as a family.
Okay.
So we give our kids some space to do that. I have a few questions for you though. We do a segment that we always talk about with it's called Do You Recollect? And
Okay.
so we can get into that. Do you recollect the time when we were our children's age, either either child, where something affected you the way this potentially could be affecting them? Do you recollect the time, even if it, without telling all, your stuff, but was there a time, and where did it take you, if you will?
Okay. So I have a couple. I'm gonna name one. My grandmother was diagnosed with cancer when I was 15, and
Mm,
our child is 15. And I remember, she's been a rock for me. This is my mom's mom, who is now, she's since passed away. But I do recollect that time. I do remember going into like, I just folded up and cried because, you think cancer and you think immediately like you're gonna die.
yeah,
Yep. Whoever's got it, they're gone. That's it. And so, and obviously it was almost 30 years ago. She did not end up passing away from cancer. She stuck around for a lot longer than that, but it did impact me, because like I said, she was my rock, but also because that was one of the first times that I realized that like people pass away, but people close to you pass away. And many, many years later, she ended up passing away and that was the first time that, how you have a passing and it's just like, no, this one hits home. It was
yeah,
her passing 20 years later, but, rewind, that was the foreshadow, or I guess, not to be too ominous, but it was that moment. Um, that I remembered her, like her mortality. And I'd always seen her as somebody that would just be a constant in my world.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think for
For you?
me, I know it may not hit the same way, but it is in that realm of death. I remember, I do remember, there was a storm years ago. I was in Hart, we were in Connecticut at the time. and it was a summer one that came, one of those, I think, early September's or late June, July-ish, when it's tropical storm, hurricane season. And I remember being on Vineland Terrace, and my grandfather and I were in the house. I don't know where everyone else was, but I remember just not just being ignorant to the lingo and how storms work and so and such. But I don't remember the name of it. But this might have been 92, 3, not 1, 90, 91, 92, one of those times. I wasn't quite even in middle school yet. So I'm still in elementary. So like 90, 91, 92. And it popped off. And I just remember for those maybe 2, 3, 4 hours as the storm was hitting and listening to the news, they can gas it up. I mean,
Oh,
they
they do.
use words. They had never seen a category this and wind's going to be in here. And people were boarding up windows. I had never seen that
Mhm.
before.
For a
I
winter
never,
storm?
no, not winter. This is June, July, August. It's around that time.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never
Oh, okay.
seen
Hurricane season.
like boarding up windows. We have been through tropical storms all the time. It happens every year for us, right? But people were boarding up houses, and I seen people's car doors opening, and I looked out the window of the balcony, and people were putting food. They was grocery shopping and moving real fast, and it was barely raining, but I'm seeing people move real. I'm like, is this? It felt, it didn't feel too settling. I thought that maybe something different was going to happen. And I just kind of remember, I didn't voice it, but I just remember that 2, 3 hours just being real anxious, real nervous, not really knowing what was going on. The TV was on as they talked about it. And then at some point during the night, after you hear all of the loud, the loud wind and all that stuff, I remember going outside, and we, it passed obviously. And it happened earlier in the day because it got dark. And then when it gets dark, it makes you feel like it's nighttime, but it's not.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
once it passes through, the light comes back out, the sun comes back out, and it's super wet outside. And I walked outside to the front, and there was like trees and big branches down, and you seen the power lines down. So we didn't have any power for a little while. And I was just like, hey, like I didn't know nature could do this.
Mm,
I didn't know nature was capable of this. But I just
right.
remember, really, 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 really freaked out about that. And although this is something different, it kind of felt that way. That's what
Oh,
I recollect.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. When we woke up yesterday morning, there was a 6-ish or whatever. We opened up those blinds around 7. The
Yeah.
sky was orange.
Ooh.
It was dark. I mean, you were
Yeah.
there. You
Yeah.
can,
Somebody called,
um,
somebody called me today, and I said it was like a blue sky trying to be blue, and then smoke being smoke, while the sun's also trying to be smoke. So, do you remember being younger and putting like like the two wrong Kool-Aid packets in there and getting like a weird color to make Kool-Aid? That's what the sky looked like. I was like, oh, you put the
okay.
wrong color. Like
Oh,
that's what it felt like. This thick, nasty, what I mean, this thick,
like a
nasty.
murky kind of,
Yeah,
it felt ominous. It definitely felt ominous. I remember because it was garbage day, so we're trying to put the garbage cans out, and I'm trying to like get my bearings together because it's morning and
yeah,
you know, and it's the sun's typically out, or it at least looks like daylight at
right,
7 in the morning,
right.
but it was none of that. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm sure this is in the Bible somewhere.
Ah, you thought you was in Pompeii? Like this is
It,
Pompeii?
or the
Uh,
apocalypse, who knows?
right. Well,
McDonald's.
those are the words they've been using though. They've been using all of those words on the news and different news outlets. But yeah, all the ashes, you can still smell it. Almost to the
When
where you
I opened my door just now, it's all up against
yeah,
the
it's,
windows, and yeah,
it's
you can
visible.
see. Yeah,
Yeah, this morning,
wow.
it was kind of cold this morning. So I usually turn the heat on in the morning, on the way to the gym. And I remember like it just all burst through the vents,
The
like all the
vents.
ash
Hmm.
and dust.
Hmm.
And I'm like, well,
Hmm.
I guess I'm driving cold because I'm not messing with this.
Hmm.
People got
Hmm.
their mask on, people got
On.
goggles on. It's interesting. But for those of you who who like our 860 listeners, specifically, if you're from the 860, just imagine we're in the city. I won't say specifics, but we're in the city. And just imagine Avon that way toward the west, right? So Avon. The other way would be like a Tolland. Going the other way would be like a Berlin, Newington. And then the other way would be like maybe a Granby, right? All of these towns, we all have family who live out there, but we don't, you know what I mean? But it's far enough, but close enough to where you can feel that chill up your spine, right? Like
Mhm.
this is close, this is close. So when it hit, when I seen the word Hollywood Hills, we talked about that, how the media put Hollywood real big and then
And then
Hills,
hills. Yeah.
Hollywood Hills, same as Hollywood, y'all. It's not the
Mm-mm.
same. So, we don't, we're not, making fun or making light, but it's like, I'm grateful in this moment for being a city dweller. And, you know, if I can make a little fun with it, you heard me say it before. If these fires start walking down, Crenshaw and La Brea and all of that, God talking.
It's time to
It, it,
go.
it's time to go.
Hmm.
It's time to go. But seeing it in real time, all the way down to, like I said, smelling the smoke on players' hair, realizing that I'm coming from home and eating. Went to a movie yesterday. I mean, had time to plan, threw on the clothes that I wanted to throw on. These kids are coming from complete disorientation, like just showing up, and there's people out like as if LA needs more homeless people, right?
Well,
We are notorious for the homeless,
hmm,
our homeless community. So these
hmm,
people are now joining those numbers, and even if you have money, you can't rebuild no home tomorrow.
no. I have questions. I mean, I know you don't have the answers for them, but those are the things. So when we say like we have heavy hearts and we're devastated and right, I think those are the things that I'm wondering. Like your home should be your sanctuary. It should be a
Right.
place of solace for you. It should be a place of comfort. It should feel like a constant. It should feel stable. It should feel all of those things that these families, many families they have a big question mark, right? The beauty is that the majority of these families are affluent and have resources. And so it's a blessing that, that they have that on their side. Um,
Right.
but I think the biggest question that I'm having is like, okay, so how long is it going to take to rebuild Palisades? What do you do in the interim? Do you just
Right.
prepare to, to move further north or further south? Like what happens?
Man.
To children's, like what happens to these schools, what happens to, just all of the things and just kind of thinking about that because I am very much a person who dwells in I like change. I do like spontaneity, but there is definite comfort in the routine. And now, like you said, it's just total disorientation. And I'm really concerned, about what's next for the city, but also what's next for um, this community of people.
Right. Right. I'm sure big decisions are going to be made, whether you wanted to or not. But I bet you there'll be some
Mhm.
people who are going to make some decisions that will, you know, that have to be made, whether that's leaving the state,
Mhm.
whether that, I don't know. This is a moment, and I try to tell the kids as well, like you once again, you see it on TV, you see it on your phone, and a lot of times it don't touch your door, it don't ring your doorbell. This one does. This
Mhm.
one does. And there's still people out there recovering from storms that happened last year and the year before and the year
Right.
before. So it's like you
Right.
join a list of people who are displaced and, been unfairly, uh, like almost like charged with the crime almost. You know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
you join
Mhm.
that number. Now, what I am grateful for and I am thankful for is that we're not reading about numbers of people, dead, that a big number of deaths. I'm grateful for that.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm super grateful that that's not the case, and that's not
Right.
always. A lot of times, it usually yields some death, and people have died, but thank God it's not scores and tens and
Well,
thousands. thousands. I wanted to mention this to you too, without saying too much. The politics of it. We're losing daylight. Obviously, you guys see this is
Mhm.
real time. We really wanted to get this out to you guys. It was really important. But one last thing on the
Okay.
political side. On the way out, a couple of my kids who live in Palisades or what remains of it, Pacific Palisades, said that they recognized even in the moment that there were certain places that were untouched, or fairly or left unscathed. And they said that these people, because it happened so quickly, there are some more, we're talking about rich, well off, rich, wealth, affluence, right? And they're saying there's another level up there, and that there's some people who hired their own people to come up there and make sure that they had water and that their places did. Yep. And I was like, wait, like the Titanic, where like the money's a thing at all times. I couldn't.
Mm.
It was like, yeah, there was people out there who had connections, who made sure that there were certain firefighters and certain provisions, and those places did not go up. And then they even said all they're gonna do is turn around and buy this land. They now become more affluent because now they're gonna buy this land all the way up.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I said,
Okay.
whoa, come on, man. These are 8, 17, 18, 19. Of course they didn't hear it. They didn't heard it from their parents. You know what I mean? But
Right.
even gossip or rumors, I bet you there's some truth to it because there's levels of this money thing and there's levels to politics, right?
Wow.
And I'm like, wow. So they said just pay attention to what survived and what didn't. And I'm like, wow, unbelievable. So even in that, you have some nonsense.
I'll stay tuned because I'm curious now.
Yeah,
Because like some of the things that I was asking you that we're not going to talk about in this space, right? Because it is political and whatnot. But there were some things that I was thinking about, and I was just like, if the I was about to talk about it, but just I'm curious about um what's what's circulating, and I'm gonna keep my ear out because of the relationships that I've even built with some of these families, and I'm
yeah.
curious as to what they're saying, and just leaving that space for
Stay
them.
tuned and stay tuned. And last and certainly not least is the Altadena piece. What I mean, I don't want to
Hmm.
take it and steer it that way. You do realize that Altadena is a suburb of Pasadena, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And generally speaking, those people in Altadena are very blue collar, aka black and brown people,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Don't get me wrong, they talking about it, but
but they're not.
but they ain't. You
But
know what
they're
I mean?
not.
I woke up this morning to a list of celebrities who've lost their
Their
homes, and I'm
homes,
not making fun, but only in L.A. Now, maybe not in L.A., but why in the world is there a segment? Why is there a segment dedicated to talking about the homes of the stars who've lost their homes? All right,
right?
where them black and
Well,
them
there was also an aside which was really interesting, and the
we
newscaster
have
then.
lost daylight. Sorry, we gotta land this plane because they can't see us. At least can't, my
Okay, but this
chocolate.
is okay. This is worth sharing. So they were talking about the families, and then they mentioned Mandy Moore because Mandy Moore resides in the Altadena area, and so
Ah,
she posted. We don't know if she's lost a home, but we know that her children lost their
upstairs.
school.
Ooh.
Yes, she hasn't said. She did say she had to evacuate. You were there, report, right? And I thought that was a moment where I was like, well, isn't that interesting? Because the only time they're talking about Altadena is when they're talking about the cars that are ablaze,
Mm-hmm.
and the apartment building
Showed that car on fire over and
and
over.
over. And I mean,
Right.
there are more than that car, and again, not, but it's really interesting to see the emphasis, and even us as we're talking about it, we're spending this little bit of time on Altadena, but really it's because we don't have a whole lot of information except for that whole foothill area is
Right.
or was ablaze. Yeah.
Right.
So,
Right.
but we know personally a family who has lost their home, and there are sure are many
Very
others, and I've talked to some people. So, yeah.
trippy, man. It's a trip. But yeah, we are losing daylight, y'all. We wanted to give our. It was very important that we took this episode, and obviously, you don't see the marriage for grown folk stuff. We're not trying to be lazy. This is not an attempt to be
Mm-mm.
lazy. Because believe me,
No,
we
not
do.
at all.
Matter of fact, wait till you see what we have for you next, buddy. Buddy. Okay, buddy? But
Okay.
no, we're losing daylight. I actually had a really good time. This felt like kind of therapy, kind of actually,
It
to
did.
talk about and
It
kind
did.
of talk about everything that's happening out here with these wildfires in Southern California, aka Los Angeles. But I do realize that history is being made. We're not out of the water yet. From what they're
Mhm.
saying, what we need to happen is for these winds to chill out, or that we just need a flat out strong day of rain, right? Of
There
precipitation.
is no rain in the forecast,
No rain in the forecast.
and winds
So
are supposed to be up tomorrow. So,
winds up. So whenever you get this, whenever you guys get this episode, send a prayer up, all right? Because we're not out of the woods yet. And if we got to evacuate, we'll evacuate. But I do believe we're fine, but we ain't out of the woods yet. So to say it again and say it, for the umpteenth time, shout out to the people who are affected and impacted by these wildfires that are happening as we speak.
first
Uh,
responders, thank
yep,
you
first,
for all that you
yeah,
do. Hmm.
yep.
Hmm.
All the principals, teachers, leadership. This can't be easy. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I mean, they've even found a way to politicize the fact that our mayor was in Ghana at the time. I'm not going to even talk about that. You know what I mean? She's the one that didn't sign the bill, and she had the money go towards the police, and not the. And now that there's no water for us to look, man. This ain't the time. This ain't the time. This ain't the time. So, as we speak to you right now, we are safe. Air quality poor. We can smell burning, almost so much so that we're almost like we're conditioning to get used to smelling the smoke.
Yeah.
But hopefully, by the time this reaches you guys, everything is contained. People are wow. This is wild. But thank you guys for listening and appreciating what we're doing here with Marriage for Grown Folks. We have a home. I can't even imagine after all the things that we went through with this home for it to go up in flames. Especially with these insurance companies acting the way they act. Take your money all day, every day, and then act like they don't owe you. They don't even know you when you act like you need to use it, right? Help me out, cover me. Nah, 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 nah. We ain't giving you nothing. But thank you guys once again. Lizzie, you did a fantastic job. Thank you for taking this time as well. We losing daylight. Daylight is gone. But
We
look at that
wrapping
sky.
it up?
Wrapping it up.
Okay. Marriage for grown folks.
There's is for grown folks. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
Bye.